Hello, friends. What does it mean to grow something sacred? Whether it's a congregation, a garden, or your own spiritual life. Join us as we sit down with the Reverend Dina Van Claveren, Episcopal priest and diocesan leader, and Master Gardener, whose story is a gentle but profound reminder that faith grows best when it's rooted in humility, intention, and care. I'm Lynn Shematek of the Good News team with Deacons John Shematek and Lauren Welch, where hope is always in season.
Dina Van Claveren, welcome to our podcast, Good News. We're so glad you're with us today.
I'm so glad to be with you. Thanks for having me, John and Lauren.
We've really been looking forward to having you, Dina. We'd like to get to know you a little bit more and find out what's important to you. And I see you're wearing a collar, and I know you're an Episcopal priest and that you were ordained in 2007. So you are close to or already into your 18th anniversary of ordination.
Yeah.
You were a parish priest for a number of years. Now you're on the diocesan staff. So tell us anything you'd like us to know about you, Dina Van Claveren.
Thank you. And thanks for doing the math for me. That's really helpful. And it's nice to think back to those early days. I serve now on diocesan staff in the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland. I am delighted to support our new bishop, Carrie Schofield Broadbent, in her ministry around the diocese. My area at the moment is development and stewardship and congregational vitality. And it's been really fun to do something new and different after 15 years in parish ministry at St. Andrew's Glenwood and a few years before that in Annapolis as a curate. I started this position about a year and 3 months ago. It was right after my 50th birthday, and it was really nice at the age of 50 to do something totally new and different and exciting and support the ministry and mission of our diocese, which has been really good and challenging work.
Yeah, these have been really exciting times since Bishop Carey has arrived, and we're all just in a whole new world anyway, but all the wonderful developments and innovations that we're doing in the diocese. I'm just wondering, this position is, I don't know if it's a new position or not. Are you inventing it as you're going on?
I probably am because it's fairly new for me, although it taps into some work that I've been able to do in the past. While as a parish priest or chair of the board of Claggett, I've helped with capital campaigns and lots of stewardship and fundraising efforts. This work is a little different in that it supports a breadth of ministry areas across the diocese through the bishop's appeal. It also resources congregations that are facing new and different challenges around stewardship, membership, how people give, planned giving challenges. There have been people in the role of director of development in the past. Bishop Carey reimagined the role in a really comprehensive way, and that's got its challenges and blessings for sure.
What has surprised you the most in this last year in this position?
Lauren, what surprises me is the breadth of ministry across our diocese that I was not aware of. I've had the opportunity as a diocesan staff person of looking at the parochial reports and thinking about ministry and mission across the whole diocese, all 10 counties and Baltimore City. It's really inspiring. There are so many ministries that I didn't know about, children that are being fed in parts of the diocese every weekend. 200 plus children are getting backpacks full of food from one congregation. There's a congregation that's supporting, along with other congregations in their area, 900 children for lunch every summer day. It gives me the chills. I just got the chills. When you think about the expanse, the breadth, the depth, the fullness of the ministry that we share as a diocese, I feel very up close and personal to the deep spiritual generosity of our diocese in this role. I celebrate that and give thanks to God for that. Then I get to ask people to be generous, to give more and in new ways. And again, this year for things like Sutton Scholars and Camp Claggett and all the things that we care about as a community of love. It's wonderful. There's disappointing days where we didn't get the grant. And then there's really upbeat days where somebody calls and says, yes, I do want to support that. I want to write a check for $100 or $10,000. Gifts at so many levels are generous.
Dina, I just love the positive that came out. I was guessing we might be hearing more about obstacles in these troubled times. It's wonderful to hear all this affirmation about the great work being done across the diocese. Some of that's a pretty well kept secret. That's why we're
Mm.
doing good news, find and spread that news around. That must be so heartwarming, as you've suggested. Yeah.
It is. And I actually think there's harm in not sharing it. So we are sharing it as part of the Bishop's Appeal this spring and throughout the year. We are sharing all that data that we collect in the Bishop's Appeal is getting put back together, tallied up and put back together and fashioned into good news for the whole diocese. Folks should know more about it in the months ahead.
Is there anything in your life that brings you joy?
I had dinner yesterday with somebody who says that when he counts his blessings before he goes to bed, he often falls asleep before he's halfway through his list because his
Oh,
list is so long. And I teased him and said, you're going to have to start at the bottom and go backwards. I do this thing in my own emotional and spiritual life where I check how I'm feeling. If the feelings are unpleasant, I learned this from Marshall Rosenberg in a book called Nonviolent Communication, which I highly recommend. It's an old book, a lot of people know it, but he teaches us to scan ourselves for our feelings and our emotional content. When the emotional content or feelings are really unpleasant, they often point to an unmet need. He's got this list available online as a PDF download. I've used it for years and with my young adult children now, 22 and 19, I use this list to scan and say, what are my unmet needs? How can I get those met appropriately? And those needs that can't be met because that friend has died or that is not available to me at this time, whatever it is, that's the Christian experience of suffering and learning how to suffer with some compassion and gentleness for myself and those around me and connect with all the resources I need when I'm suffering. What's bringing me joy right now is so many things because I do this scan and I don't have a lot of unmet needs. I'm not pleased with everything that's going on in the world. I'm not getting what I want in lots of areas. I would make a lot of demands on things that are not happening. However, those things that are within my sphere of control in my household, in my workplace, and in my community of friends and family, I have so many blessings and so many of my needs are being met.
Dina, is that something you would, that exercise that you go through, looking at your blessings and so on? And we'll definitely we'll make a note in our show notes about the book that you mentioned. Is that sort of exercise or practice something that you think would benefit many people, if not all of
Oh,
them?
I keep the PDF. I have all these files on my laptop because I want everything to be organized and tucked away, except I keep a couple pictures of my family, my kids, always available for me, and this PDF. I think it's 4-page PDF of all the different feelings, all the unmet needs. So I can scan it and check in, especially when I'm feeling really angsty or stuck. I need to get unstuck sometimes. So I'll go to the PDF and read through it, and I find what it is that I need to work on. But on the way, I realize how many areas of my life are in good shape, how many blessings I do have.
And it sounds like that helps you deepen your spirituality.
Yes, yes,
It's more,
absolutely. It teaches me spiritually, it teaches me accountability or agency. It's a bit like an Ignatian examine.
Mhm.
Where do I need to invite God to help me do some work? So if I have a need for health, if there's something in my health that's not quite lining up, I'm not feeling good. This happens to me as a native Southern Californian in the winter. I get the blahs. I think other people get the blahs and worse. But I just get into this funk where I'm numbing with TV or on my phone, especially when I'm not happy with other things happening in the world. I might start doom scrolling and getting riled, and then I'm staying up late because my energy is getting amped up, but I really need to go to bed. And so when I have an area like my health or my sleep patterns that I need to work on, then this unmet needs list can identify for me where I need to journal and talk with God and pray and ask for some divine intervention, some help.
Dina, I'm
Thank you.
wondering, you're a priest, Lauren and I are deacons. Obviously, we're all Episcopalians, and so this message really resonates pretty strongly. Now, some of our viewers and listeners are probably spiritual. Everyone's got a spiritual life, no matter what
Sure.
they think. It sounds like this really applies across the board, whether you have a belief system or not.
I think one thing that the Christian belief system does help many of us with is claiming the right amount of agency, understanding where we start and stop, and where we trust in something larger than ourselves. That I use language like God for when I get really clear about unmet needs and what Dina needs to do, and then get really clear about what I can't do, what I don't have control over, what I need to entrust to God, then I can back away from sometimes having a grip on something and relax and learn. My kids are both in college. One is 35 miles away and one is many states away. Learning to trust your children
Mhm.
into God's care and the care of those good people around them, learning how to trust your children in their own care to care for themselves is a kind of spiritual discipline that, whether we are practicing a faith or not, requires some tending.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about your transition from parish ministry and what that must have been like into your new life. I'm gathering you go from place to place.
It's a very different rhythm. I miss the deep relationships I've had with people over 15 years of ministry together, marrying people, baptizing their babies, being with families through losses, and really having a longer spiritual saga together. I miss that. Yet there is something spiritually fulfilling about driving around and not knowing what I'll find and getting into a new worship space I've never been to before. It's the joy of travel rather than the joy of home. Being a rector in a place for 15 years, you've got that comfort of home. And it also is home. Sometimes you're like, it's just home. Travel can be wearying. Oh no, I've got to get there. I've got to plan. I've got to prepare. I don't know where I'm going, and has some hassles involved. And it also has the unknown. Part of being a minister in a congregation for a long time is that experience of staying grounded and at home. And what I'm enjoying right now is the itinerancy, the trust in whatever I find. In fact, I'm learning now that when I show up somewhere, it's pretty much 99% the same, no matter if it's what we used to call high church or low church, big church, small church, city, country. Those of us that have been doing this ministry for a while can walk in, scan the place, and understand it. And mostly the folks that are welcoming you are trying to explain, we do it this way, these wafers are for this. A lot of that is actually self-explanatory. And what I think is really interesting, and I thought this when I was a parish rector, is that we each think that our home is so special and unique and different from all the other places. They're all very much beautiful spaces that people love and come together to take care of each other and the world around them and to praise God together. There's so much unity and similarity actually between all of these homes. It's a little bit like traveling the world and seeing how people live. There's a lot of similarities, even if things are quite different visually. So I guess deacons probably know that you're more itinerant, you travel around, and the bishop might send you to different places. A priest can get pretty cozy and grounded in a home base.
Yeah, you're right. I was active in parish ministry, as was Lauren, for much of 30 years. We were ordained together. Oh, what was it, Lauren? 1989. So it's a
89.
long
Oh my
before so
gosh.
many people were born. No, but it is interesting, and we get a little taste of that, what you're talking about vicariously. I served in 7 parishes over 30 years, so that was the norm then, and still is to some extent. One of the things I'm enjoying with Bishop Carey is vicariously visiting with her. Her social media, every
Yes.
time she's anywhere else, you get a sense of that church. And it is a source of joy to see the common life that we have in Christ and in the way that we worship and the way that we are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Dina, I know you have things outside of the church that also give you great joy. Is there one you can highlight for us and talk about a little bit?
It's spring, so I have to talk about what's happening outside this window in the yard. I am a master gardener. I became a master gardener during COVID because everything went online. I could finally do it. This is a strange story in a way. I became a master gardener because I wanted a really beautiful master plan for my yard. We have 3.5 acres. And I wanted this kind of garden and that kind of garden. And I wanted azaleas and rhododendrons and I wanted pathways. And I've envisioned it so many different ways. I thought if I take a master gardener course and become a master gardener, I would at least along the way develop the master plan for the yard. And then I could execute it. That was the big plan. I like to know how to do all the things in the yard. By the grace of God, I passed the Master Gardener program. Soil science is really hard. I wasn't great in sciences, but I really worked at it and I tried to understand how soil can actually make a plant grow along with light, so forth. And at the end of the day, I answered the questions right, passed the exam, but my real answer is God is amazing and makes things grow because the soil science is very intricate and difficult. I enjoyed that very much, became a master gardener, and along the way learned about invasive plants. And when we learned about invasive plants, it was really depressing. It was like learning about sin. Oh, everything looks great. And then you find out all the bad stuff. I would go for a walk in the woods near our home, and I would start to see invasive plants in the woods, and it ruined walks. This is a drag now that I know too much. That's a little bit like being human. When you know too much about human greed or how ego gets in the way of things, pride, like sin, it was very similar. When you see those things, it can ruin it. I know lots of folks who leave church because they saw sin somewhere in the church and they left. I determined I wasn't going to leave the woods just because I saw the invasives. And so I volunteered to pull invasives, and there's a lot to it. And I volunteered to do that as part of my volunteering in Master Gardeners. And the more I learned, I got introduced to somebody my family jokingly called my Master Gardener boyfriend, a professor at University of Delaware, Doug Tallamy. He is a professor, and he has written this book, Nature's Best Hope, which changed my life. It changed my spiritual life as well. I'll tell you about that. And then I just got his new book. This just was released and I got it in my hot little hands, called How Can I Help Saving Nature with Your Yard? And these two books, along with Native Plants for Wildlife Conservation here in Maryland, you can see I've got lots of tabs in there. These are my go-to things right now for my hobby out in the yard. But so here's what happened. Instead of getting a master plan, I became convicted. I had a conversion experience in which I had to face a really ugly truth about myself, which was the reason I wanted a master plan and a perfect lawn was so that my neighbors would think highly of me. And that anyone who came on my property would say, "This is beautiful. You are amazing people. You're an amazing gardener. You are good people because look at your yard and your beautiful lawn, all nice and neat." And I think in a community like where I live on an old country road with lots of houses that were built in the 80s and 90s, the lawn and cutting the lawn is a way to communicate that we care about our homes, that we care about our neighborhood, if you will, that we're decent because we cut our grass. We would worry when we would go on vacation and not mow the grass in the summer for 10 days. We got to get home and mow before the neighbors think we've moved out or get cranky. And so a lot of the desire to keep your yard nice has to do with what other people think of you. And I had this real awareness, and it reminded me of times I've gone to a cocktail party and I haven't been drinking. I just don't want to drink any alcohol at that party. And people feel very uncomfortable when they're drinking and you're saying, "No, thank you. I'll have," and you'll even get something like soda in a glass that looks like you have a cocktail so that people leave you alone.
Maybe with a slice of lime in it.
You're like tricking people. This is really a cocktail, but you're just not drinking. Having a yard that's a little messier or not as tame makes people anxious around you, makes your neighbors anxious. It makes my husband a little anxious. This is something we are trying to figure out. But what I realize is the more we invest in pouring fossil fuels into a tractor to spend hours of our time, which is precious, on our grass so that it looks really nice for the neighbors, that may not be the best investment of A, fossil fuels, B, our time, and C, the land itself. And so what I've learned from Doug Tallamy is by keeping my yard in a monoculture lawn, I'm actually harming the environment. That monoculture of a non-native grass that is my yard is not feeding the birds, the butterflies, all the insects we depend upon. And how I'm getting around this with my husband, who would really like everything to be very neat and tidy, is he loves to feed the birds in our backyard feeders. Once we understood that if we don't have enough keystone trees and enough native perennial plants in the yard to take care of some of the insects that need to have their young in our yard in order to then feed the birds, we're going to lose population of birds in our area, birds that we love to look at. And so this has led to a whole new wilding of our yard, which if you come to visit me, you'll see is a bit of a disaster zone. It is not the master plan I wanted. I've had to sacrifice this idea of prominence and my own ego among my neighbors to let it look a little messy, to leave the leaves all winter long and the stems of the native perennials so that the pollinator babies can do what they need to do over the winter. I used to clear that all out and mulch again. And then I learned it is already mulch. It's the mulch. Some of the stuff that we get tricked into thinking we need for our yards, for our lives, it's really just people trying to sell us stuff and keep us in a loop. The piece that really gets me that I don't really hear people talking about, and when I talk about it, people think I'm crazy. The more I learn about how land has been used over time, the more I come to understand that I'm addicted to some very weird notions of aristocracy. And here we are in the Episcopal Church, which has bishops and priests and deacons and roles and hierarchy. And we think that serves the kingdom of God. That's why we have it. And we also sometimes worship the hierarchy or the aristocracy piece that's embedded in it in a way that's really unhealthy. And I think we do this with our yards. Many years ago, the people that moved to this part of the world, Maryland, the mid-Atlantic, were from parts of England that had great lawns to show that they had enough servants to keep those lawns cut. They didn't have a lawnmower. We have an electric one now. It's really lovely. They had people that they took advantage of and oppressed and made cut their grass. The longer the grass went from the house down to where people approached, the more wealthy you were because the more people you could force into the labor of caring for it. So when I want my lawn to look a certain way so that the approach to my house is beautiful, and I live in a colonial style home, I am inheriting some of this colonial ick around looking like an aristocrat, like little plantation owners. And it's really problematic because land for most people at the time was about food, was about animals being able to graze, and it was about growing the food they needed to eat. It was not about impressing people on the approach to your stately home. So for those of us that want to have this stately grass in front of our stately home or townhouse, we are inheriting this garbage around what the land is for and what our yards are for. I am growing more comfortable with turning the land. I want to have areas where we can play soccer and ultimate frisbee. Don't get me wrong. I love grass for that. I want to be out there for Easter egg hunt. This Easter, we're going to be out in the grass. We're going to always have some grass to play on and picnic on. And I'm getting more comfortable with wild areas in the yard that are not wild with invasives, but are really intentionally native perennials and native trees to restore habitat that's been lost in the mid-Atlantic. And that's really what the Doug Tallamy books are teaching me. So that's some of the work I'm still doing and thinking about. I have come to terms, and I can admit that I'm addicted to this aristocratic notion of a stately approach to my home down a driveway with a lawn that's really green and gorgeous and cut neatly. I'm trying to learn how to give up caring what other people think and do what is right for God's planet more than do what will make my neighbors happy. If any of my neighbors on my street happen to see this, will explain a lot to you.
Yeah. No, it explains a lot to me, and I'm not one of your neighbors, but you're a real evangelist for creation care. And I really loved also what you said, Dina, to clarify. It clarified for me when you talked about the intentionality. This is not just letting
Oh,
it
no.
go, because as you said, what's going to happen is the invasives come in, and that's all you've got.
Isn't it just
Your
like our
plantings.
lives? It's exactly, because it's just like my own life. I might create space for something that I think is going to be holy and good. And if I'm not careful, something else might grow in that space in my own spiritual life, in my soul and in my heart and in my mind. And so it's got a lot of overlap, and yet it's not a metaphor for me. So while it can be a metaphor for spiritual life, the actual change to my yard is a spiritual practice, allowing the grass. There's something called no mow May, because you want to let all the perennials and the areas of your yard foster all the life of all those baby insects. It's really hard not to mow until May or through May. It's really hard to host a party at your house and not have a really nice lawn. Not doing that is actually a spiritual practice. It's a faithfulness to God's call over what other people think, which is like the work of life, the work we're all doing in life.
The other element that comes through to me so strongly in what you're saying, Dina, is humility. It sounded so Franciscan in a way that this is God's creation, and the way that we have managed to change things for appearance is really counter to that whole idea. So much food for thought and books for thought. We'll put all those books in the show notes so people can find them. That's awesome. Thanks for all that.
Thanks.
That was wonderful because it not only shows what you've learned through gardening, but how your whole life is intertwined. How your spiritual life, your work life, and your living is all one. So thank you.
Well said.
Yeah. Dina, I'm just thrilled that you've been with us today and shared so much. This was a really interesting, exciting voyage for me. I always have to give Lauren an opportunity to bring up the last topic or ask the last question. Lauren, please do.
Dina, you have shared so much wisdom today. What would you like to leave our listeners and people who are watching? What advice would you like to leave them with?
Several years ago, I was moving my parents from Arizona to Maryland during a pandemic to be closer to us as they were aging. I was thinking about how I'm going to need some patience to do all that. And a friend said, it's not patience, it's gentleness. So I would offer to people the word gentle, because the word patience has never worked for me, if I'm honest. It makes me feel less patient. But the word gentle transforms how I breathe, how I interact. It transforms me and my well-being. So I would like to leave your community of good news with the word gentle in any area where we are struggling or suffering or doing something new or hard, to really consciously be gentle touch, gentle gaze, gentle words, to seek some gentleness. I think it goes, in my experience thus far in life, the longest way.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
You are welcome. John and I want to thank those who are watching and listening for the gift of your time with us. Until next time, peace and blessings.
This episode of Good News has been brought to you by Listening for Clues. For more podcasts, check out our YouTube channel or our website listeningforclues.com.